Hello, want to welcome everyone to our webinar on upskilling as a method for growing your freelance business. The clock has struck 10 a.m. on my side, which is our official start time from where I'm broadcasting. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a few little intro items, so I can see our attendee numbers are still clicking up. So we'll get a little slow start here so everyone will have a chance to join in and catch all the good information. I want to start today by introducing myself. I'll be your host for the next hour, and my name is Dana Rowley. I am a freelancer, just like you all. I have a background in marketing and have been a full-time freelancer for almost 7 years now. In freelancing, I focus on brand strategy and communication, mostly for growing businesses. And I'm broadcasting live today from San Diego, California, where I serve as the Upwork Ambassador for our city. And I organize events for the freelancer community, like focus groups, expert webinars with special guests, and as well as hosting best practices webinars like the one we're on today. Also on this slide, I like to include a picture of my rescue dog, Barley, because he is in a war with our mailman, and it never fails that when I'm on an important meeting or phone call, the mail will arrive and he'll start barking like crazy. So if you hear a faint ruckus in the background, don't worry, everything's okay. Just means the mail has arrived. All right, so here's what we'll cover today. We're going to talk about upskilling and why it's important. We're going to learn about an upskilling pro. I'm going to share with you some skill trends on Upwork. Super valuable information, so make sure you hang in there for those. I'm going to talk about some soft skills for freelancers. I'm going to provide some resources that you can use to upskill, and then we're going to leave some time for question and answer at the end. So a few points of business before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to go back and maybe catch parts you missed, or if your audio visual cuts out on you, you can go back and check on those items. The catch is it's a little tricky to hunt down. What you have to do is find the page you used to register for this webinar. So go back in your emails, find that invite, click on that link, and you'll get to the registration page. If you put your name and email address in there after we conclude here today, that will give you access to the recording. Also, I mentioned we have some time for question and answer at the end today. I ask that you save your questions till the end. We've got a lot of good information to cover, so make sure that you're watching the whole thing to see if you've got all the information, and then see if you still have that question at the end. So with that, let's go ahead and get into our content for today. All right, so why do we care? What are we all doing here today? Why upskill? What is it and why does it matter? So let's start with defining upskilling versus reskilling. These are two slightly different things. So upskilling is the development of additional skills to help make yourself more valuable in the services you provide. So a good example would be a software developer learning an additional coding language. Reskilling is the development of significantly different skills to be able to take on different projects. So this can be done in kind of two different ways. It can be complementary skills, like a graphic designer taking a writing course so that they can provide full sales materials to their clients, or it can be a complete change, like a former bank analyst retraining to work as a web designer. For the purposes of this webinar, we're going to focus mostly on upskilling. And we're going to focus on it because it's a key way to move your freelance career forward. It's not the only way, but it's a really impactful one. So let's talk about that impact. Successful freelancers are professionals, and professionals need a growth mindset in order to stay competitive. They need a willingness to embrace new ways of doing things. They think globally, both literally and also in the way that they look at and approach projects. They have an agile adoption mindset, which means they're quick to change or adapt, and they maintain a basic competency in ever-changing technology. And on top of all of that, they've also got people skills and business skills. So this list is a lot. So if you came here thinking that growing a freelance career would be really easy, probably best to leave right now, because it's not. But if you put in the work and you put in the effort, you can reap some great rewards. Upskilling is about growing into a better future. So here are some of the areas you can think about to help guide you and create a plan for what upskilling looks like for you. So the first thing to do is to plan your analysis. How do you even figure this out? You want to start thinking about your areas for growth, and there's a lot of ways that you can do this. You can do it through skills assessments, or even through just conversations with respected people in your industry or your peers. This was true for me recently. I had a conversation with a freelancer that comes to a lot of my events here in San Diego, and we talked about some of the thoughts we had on where we had areas to grow, and it was a great conversation that helped me identify some areas that I'm going to be working on in the future. You want to think about things that are measurable, and you want us to spend some time with some hard thought about where you could improve. You want to think about your future goals. Where are you going? Is there anything on the horizon in the next 12 months? What areas where would you like to have more knowledge or skills? You can look to future work trends to spark some thought. So more on this coming up in this webinar soon. You want to be realistic about where your current skills stand, and you want to identify areas for growth. Figure out what you might want to tackle and put those findings into action. I know this sounds like it can be a daunting process, but you don't necessarily need to do all the steps of it. And here are some real-world freelancers' perspectives on skills and training. So 65% of freelancers had skill training in the past 6 months. And 4 in 5 freelancers recognize the value of skill training to their work and future opportunities. So this data is from the 2019 Freelancing in America study, which was a collaborative effort between Upwork and the Freelancers Union, and surveyed more than 6,000 freelancers. I'll share this link to this study with you when we get to the Q&A section, so you can dive into the results if you want. But the big takeaway here is that many freelancers are keeping their skills fresh. So if you're not, you're really going to have a hard time standing out and rising to the top. Here's a few more findings from that same study. 78% of freelancers agree that soft skills are at least equally as important as technical skills to succeed in their work. So we'll talk a little bit more about soft skills and what those are here in a bit. And 81% of freelancers find freelance business skills are important to their work. The top 3 areas where freelancers were looking for additional training were networking, new skills in their field, and how to start and grow a freelance career. That's what the majority of freelancers wanted to improve. Here are the top 3 reasons why they wanted to improve. So 46% said it was to stay up to date with developments in their field. 43% said to keep up with changing technologies. And 40% said to earn more higher paying skills. And again, we'll share this study with you as we get closer to the Q&A, but if you want to search it out, it's pretty easy to find if you Google Freelancing in America study. You can even add Upwork to that to make sure you've found the right one. Now we understand why upskilling is important and how to make a plan to make it happen. So let's learn more about how a real freelancer, just like you and me, put these tips to work. Meet Joshua Burns. He's a top-rated freelancer on Upwork. He started freelancing on Upwork in May of 2016, and he's really a freelancer. So you can get on Upwork, you can go search out this profile and dig through it yourself. But we've got a screenshot of it here. He is a database administration and data engineer, as you can see from his title. And he's got a 100% job success score. He's earned over $500,000 with over 110 jobs and more than 7,000 hours of work. So he sort of knows what he's talking about when it comes to how to be successful at freelancing. Let's look at one way Josh maintains client relationships. He knows that long-term clients are immensely lucrative, and that trusted relationship that you build with a long-term client is really tough to replicate. So here's one of his stories about working with a long-term client. This client hired Josh back in 2017 to help with normal database maintenance tasks. The initial timeline for this job was roughly 3 to 6 months. Josh completed the job on time, and the client was very satisfied with his work and professionalism. The lead manager who created the Upwork job asked Josh if he could help with another project involving SQL Server failover clustering and always-on high availability. He didn't have any previous experience with these technologies, so he told the client that. And although he didn't have any prior experience, it was something that he could pick up quickly. He spent that weekend taking online courses on Pluralsight and Udemy for SQL Server failover clustering and always-on high availability. At the end of the weekend, Josh felt really comfortable with his new skills and set up a meeting with the manager to move forward with the new project. So now, why would this client be willing to wait for Josh to learn a new skill? And the reason is because of trust, confidence, and experience. So these are things that the client now knows that they can trust Josh to get the work done, the confidence that the work will be done well, and they have an experience with Josh so that they know how he works, how everything works. So don't underestimate these core things in a relationship with a client. It's about the work you do, but it's about more than that. So that weekend that Josh spent learning a new skill resulted in over $60,000 earned with that single client alone. It was long-term client work that reoccurred every single week and became one of Josh's most lucrative jobs on Upwork. So even money aside, upskilling here helps Josh avoid burnout from doing the same things over and over again. It keeps things new and exciting and allows him to maintain these really lucrative long-term client relationships. So here's some more results of those upskilling efforts. And if you look at the numbers on this screen, it looks like it paid off, right? So we have $62,000, $22,000, $32,000, $28,000. These are all with different projects. And remember, this is a real freelancer. This is not something that was made up. This is a real freelancer working today on Upwork. But also, Josh has a pretty specific skill set, and we hear that a lot. Well, it's really easy for certain areas to upskill, but harder for others. So here are some examples of other areas where you can upskill. So a freelancer that just delivered a social media strategy to their client. They're taking a course on Facebook's Blueprint Academy to upskill themselves about ads and paid content, which they can offer to their client as an additional service. Or a copywriter that just completed 5 blog articles for their client. They see improvement potential in their client's email program and are taking a course on Udemy about how to create great email copy. Or a full stack developer that's developed a new website for their client. The website starts getting a lot of traffic, which requires moving the website into the cloud and using cloud technologies for better scaling. The developer upskills themselves in cloud technologies to offer this transition to the client. So in all of these cases, you can see here that what the freelancer is doing is they're thinking about how they can help their client. If you stay focused on that, how you can be useful and how you can nurture those long-term relationships, it makes it a lot easier to identify these areas for upskilling and growth. So here's Josh's top upskilling tips. So you can research in-demand skills on Upwork, and more on that coming up in just a few slides. You can find course websites that have the best content for your desired skill set, like Josh did with Pluralsight. You can browse Upwork jobs and use the advanced search to find jobs that are related to your skill set. Josh said he often builds personal development plans around Upwork job descriptions. So you can see areas that might be close to what you do where you could expand and see that there's a demand in that area. Josh also spends an hour each day taking SQL Server courses on Pluralsight. Without scheduling the time, he probably would often make excuses and skip his daily upskilling. So for him, it's daily. For others, it might be weekly, even monthly. As long as you're keeping a focus on your areas of growth, that's what's needed to keep moving forward. All right, so as promised, I have some skill trends for you based on what is popular on Upwork. And though this information is neatly curated into one place for you here, most of this is actually not insider info. A lot of this data is published if you know where to look and remember to check in on it. So a great resource for tracking down this kind of information is the Upwork community. You can find it up underneath that little question mark that lives at the top of the page. It's under community and forums, or you can find it in the footer of any Upwork page. So keep an eye on the community. There's a ton of good information in there. There are 12 main categories of skills on Upwork, and you can see those listed here. The top 5 of these are web, mobile and software development, sales and marketing, design and creative, administrative support, and writing. So those are the top 5 buckets of the types of jobs that get posted on Upwork. And for these next few slides here, we are going to be talking about data that was pulled from Q2 of 2019 to Q1 of 2020. So we're talking about a roughly a year time frame from March 2019 to March 2020. Looking at the number 1 most in-demand category of web, mobile, and software development, here are the in-demand skills based on the number of jobs on Upwork posted in that time frame we talked about, that roughly year time frame, mostly in 2019. So in web development, there's full stack development, front-end development, CMS customization, back-end development, and CMS development. In web and mobile design, we're looking at web design, prototype, and UX UI design. And then also e-commerce development, mobile app development, scripting and automation, and desktop software development. Getting a little bit more specific in this same category, these are the top technical skills that have shown up on job posts in the web, mobile, and software development category. So these are JavaScript, HTML, web design, CSS, WordPress, PHP, API, iOS, Android, and React. So again, these are not overall on Upwork. This is in this specific web and development category. These are the top skills that have been posted. Looking at our second most popular job category of sales and marketing, here are the most in-demand skills for that Q2 of 2019 to Q1 of 2020 timeframe. So up at the top, SEO, search engine optimization, social media marketing, lead generation, digital marketing, search engine marketing, email marketing, and market research. Moving on to the third category of design and creative, the top in-demand skills are graphic design and editorial design, image editing or retouching and photography, and also illustration, video editing and post-production, brand identity design, presentation design, voice talent, 2D animation, and 3D animation. For the fourth category of administrative support, the top in-demand skills were virtual and administrative assistance, data entry, online research, and transcription. And lastly, for our fifth most in-demand category, the top skills in the writing category, content writing, editing and proofreading, copywriting, creative writing, writing tutoring, and ghostwriting. So again, all of these were pulled from Q2 2019, which starts in March, through Q1 of 2020, which ends in March. So it's that roughly year time frame. And it was based on the number of jobs that were posted on Upwork in these categories. So you can see if you're learning skills in any of these categories, there is work for you to go after. All right, so we looked at categories and kind of broke everything down into these buckets, but backing up and looking overall, what you see on this slide are the skills that are constantly in demand. They deliver high earnings for freelancers, and the demand continues to grow year over year. So I'm not going to read this whole list for you. You can see it here, and you can go back in the recording to take a look at it. But just to call out a few of these skills that are the fastest growing on Upwork is API and Android, Instagram, database architecture, wireframes, infographics, social media content, DevOps, UX, UI, Zendesk. So in looking at this too, you can also see that some of these are specific skills, like knowing a specific program like Zendesk, and some of these are bigger, more bucketized skills, like something like CRM. So knowing about CRM systems is a little bit different than being a Zendesk expert. But these are the areas that just continue to grow on Upwork. All right, so you're thinking to yourself, well, that's great for 2019, but the world has changed these days. What about after March, right? So we've thought of that too. And here are the top 10 in-demand jobs during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this data is based on the top in-demand jobs based on the total role demand change. So meaning this percentage you're seeing is the change from how many of these jobs used to be posted to how many are posted now. And the time frame here is March 16th, 2020 to March 23rd. So really this is looking at the first real week of pandemic and quarantine in the US. These were the categories that had dramatic change. So at a glance, it's clear that the substantial majority of these skills can be performed remotely. The huge spike in interest in statistical programmers and statisticians suggests that many businesses are scrambling to get more actionable intelligence from their data. And that's good news for freelancers who know Python, R, and/or SAS. Tellers were also in high demand, suggesting skills like finance, banking, payment processing, and office administration are desired. Expanding the list even further shows that freelancers with strong writing, web development, and design skills are still in strong demand. Now that we've consumed all the numbers, let's move on to the softer side and talk about soft skills for freelancers. Soft skills are interpersonal skills, such as the ability to communicate well with other people and to work in a team. Soft skills are a combination of people skills, social skills, communication skills, character or personality traits, attitudes, social intelligence, and emotional intelligence, among others. Some soft skills include adaptability, communication, creative thinking, dependability, work ethic, time management, conflict resolution, etc. So you can think of soft skills as the how the work gets done. So you know you can do the work, that's the hard skills part, but can you complete it on time? That would be the soft skills part. We asked Upwork's top-rated community about the most important soft skills they think have a direct impact on the success of their freelance business. The top three mentioned are self-presentation, so how you come across to clients, written business communication, and client relationship management, so how you work with your client and nurture those long-term relationships. So let's look at these 3 areas specifically. Soft skill number 1, self-presentation. It's pretty self-explanatory. That is how you're presenting yourself. But you're thinking, how am I presenting myself if I never meet a client in person? On Upwork, self-presentation starts with your profile and your cover letters. How you present your skills and expertise on your profile is critical to building client confidence. Joshua Burns accomplishes this by listing notable clients that he's worked with in his career. He also has relevant portfolio items that showcase his skill set. You can start off strong in your cover letter and give an example of a project or task that you've completed which aligns with the job you're bidding on. Or if you're bidding on a new job, give the client confidence that you can do the job and the reasons why. Clients want easy and effective communication when working with freelancers online, which leads me to the next important skill, soft skill number 2, written business communication. Anytime you communicate with a client, written or otherwise, your goal should always be to leave a good impression. And on Upwork, your first impression is almost always in writing, so it's very important. You want to make sure that you communicate clearly, concisely, and that you know your audience and the tone that's appropriate to take with them in your communications. You want to communicate project task updates clearly and on a level the client can understand. So you want to think about how much jargon and insider terms you might be using with a client that may or may not understand those terms. And of course, there's the basics of avoiding spelling and grammatical errors. Make sure you're proofreading and that everything makes sense before you send it. And also, writing doesn't always come naturally to everyone, but this is a skill that you can improve. This is one of those areas where you can take a class online or a workshop and become better in this arena. And our last skill for soft skills is client relationship management. So these are tips to help you stand out. You can get to know your client and speak their language, both meaning their actual language, if they speak English or Spanish, whatever the case may be, but also, again, like I mentioned, jargon, terminology, understand their level of comprehension and make sure that you're communicating clearly. You can stay organized and check in regularly, follow up and proactively ask for feedback. Make sure you're realistic on expectations and that those expectations align with the expectations your client has. You may never know what expectations your client has unless you're asking those questions to find out. Be the expert in the eyes of your client and address issues right away and be solutions oriented. Most businesses would rather use the same person long term rather than having to search for someone new. Just like searching for a job is time consuming for you, hiring and interviewing is time consuming for the client as well. So they really would rather continue working with freelancers where they know they have a good working relationship. And this is another area where, again, thinking about how you can help your client is really going to shift your perspective towards a place where you can be really successful. All right, so thank you for attention. We're getting to the point where we can address your questions and everything, but I wanted to give you some more resources that you can use directly to help you upskill. There are many online courses and options you can take. So some of them we've listed here are Coursera, edX, LinkedIn Learning, Masterclass, Skillshare, Teachable, Udacity, Udemy. There's also a lot of oddly spelled words in there, so I may not have pronounced all those correctly. But the point is there's a lot of places that you can go and look for courses that specialize in your skill set. Many of them have discounts right now, so this is a great time to be brushing up your skills. And also, Upwork published a guide specifically on navigating project opportunities during COVID-19. So this is directed at freelancers and the project opportunities that exist during COVID-19. So we'll share the link to that as well when we get to the Q&A so that you can go and check that out if you'd like to see some of the resources they list there. Speaking of LinkedIn, there's a pretty cool thing that they are doing right now, which involves a whole bunch of free learning content. So on June 30th, Microsoft partnered with LinkedIn Learning with the goal of bringing more digital skills to 25 million people worldwide by the end of the year. So the way that they're doing this is they're offering free training in 10 top in-demand careers. And so those are software developer, sales representative, project manager, IT administrator, customer service specialist, digital marketing specialist, IT and help desk support, data analyst, financial analyst, and graphic designer. So the training in all of those areas will be free of charge through the end of March 2021. Each learning path includes a sequence of video content designed to help job seekers develop the skills they need for each of those roles. And each path is currently available in English, French, Spanish, and German. So there is a ton of content in this area. And in short, there's just lots of opportunities to learn something new right now. And this is another one where we will share the link when we get to the Q&A section so that you can check out more about these opportunity LinkedIn skills for in-demand jobs. Some other helpful resources. They are not limited to taking online courses. Based on your learning style or preference, you can learn literally anything you want by reading blogs, listening to podcasts, reading ebooks, watching YouTube videos, or connecting with a group of people that are interested in the same things you are. And now has never been better time than to explore all the resources we have on our hands. There's also a wealth of resources available through Upwork. As I mentioned earlier, the Upwork community is a fantastic resource. You can ask questions, you can join discussions, and you can access blogs and resources that come directly from Upwork. And so those blogs and resources is where you find these in-demand skills lists, the quarterly skills index, and all sorts of things that can help you understand where the trends are going. In the community, you can also look for more webinars like this. So you can see community.upwork.com. You can navigate to events and webinars. And there are many best practices webinars, including getting started and freelancing on Upwork, your profile makeover webinar. There's a webinar just on proposals and how to write solid proposals. There's a webinar on trends and best practices for designers and creatives, and also one about starting an agency on Upwork. You may not have known that was even an option. So if that's interesting to you, try and find one of those you can join. So again, you can find the Upwork community through the links on this slide, but also it's available in the footer of any Upwork page.